Okay. Don't worry, Joshua. I'm doing it now. I've done it. Okay. So I was saying that, yes. I was saying that the reason why we are learning about even the UI aspects of the design process is just so we are, because as a product manager, you are going to be very much involved, hands on in the entire every phase of a product development process. And so, if you don't understand what the terminologies that the experts are using, if you don't understand the processes involved, then you will not be able to manage your team and manage the entire journey of product development. So let us get right into it. Now, what is prototyping? Prototyping is a stage of the planning phase of software development where the product team builds an experimental, simple version of the product in a bid to test how well it solves for users' pain points. In summary, prototyping is it happens during the planning phase of software development, right? So while a product is being developed, right, during the design process. So the process of product development in terms of the teams are, first of all, you do your user research, you do your market research, you do competitive analysis, then you document you draft your roadmap, you document your requirements on your PRD, hand over the PRD to the designer. The designer will design screens, hand over the PRD to your developers. Sometimes your developers will be, especially backend, can be working while the designer is doing their work. And so there are multiple stakeholders at different points. And so for now, prototyping happens during the design phase of software development, which is essentially the planning part of the planning phase of software development. And it involves just building an experimental, simple version of your product in a bid to test how well it solves for users' pain points. Now, an MVP can be a prototype because remember that an MVP is the simplest version of the products that you're getting into the hands of users in a bid to gather feedback very quickly. But an MVP is a hi-fi prototype. And you understand what I mean the more we go. But just know that a prototype is it happens at the stage where at the planning stage, at the design stage, where the product team is building an experimental, simple version of the product in a bid to test how well it solves for users' pain points. Now, it's a very quick way to not very quick, but it is a quick way to go from ideation and development to feedback and optimizing the product, because there can be this pressure on the product team, or it can be this pressure on the product manager to want to make sure that you have all the features that you know solves it for your users' pain points before you launch. For example, you've conducted user research, right? And maybe you've highlighted 5 pain points, right? And you now have 5 features, or maybe you've highlighted 10 pain points and you have 5 features that can solve for that pain point. But the time that it will take for the team to build out those 5 features is too long. The business cannot wait. The business needs to, not only does the business need to start optimizing for revenue generation, the business also would like to see how the market is receiving the product, right? And so with a prototype, you are just optimizing for you're just optimizing for, okay, let's build the simplest version. Even though we know that we need to solve five problems, let's just select one problem. Let's build a prototype that addresses that problem right now, and then let's gather user feedback and use that to optimize the product. Right now, there are different types of prototype, and like I said, we'll get back to it. We'll get into it very soon. But essentially, the goal of releasing a prototype is to ensure that the product being developed works well in the hands of users. First of all, Joshua has posted the link for attendance. Guys, please fill it so that we're not hearing the stories that we heard yesterday. Please click on the link while you're listening. Just quickly fill it and come back to the class. You don't have to leave the class anyways, but fill the attendance sheet now. So in prototyping, there's something called fidelity, right? And fidelity refers to how close a prototype is to the finished version of the product. So this is why I said there are different types of prototype. And um, the types of prototype are low fidelity and high fidelity, which is why I was explaining what fidelity means. And fidelity is essentially just how close is a prototype to the finished version. For example, a low fidelity prototype is not very close to the finished version, as opposed to how close a high fidelity version of the product will be to the finished or idealistic version of the product. It can also refer to the level of detail and functionality included in the prototype version. Now, as I said, there are two types, or there are two categories, basic categories. There are two basic categories of prototyping. There's low fidelity prototype, also known as lo-fi, and there's high fidelity prototype, also known as hi-fi. Now, with low fidelity prototype, it's all about getting the core idea across quickly and effectively or efficiently. And it's great for validating or invalidating early product concept. Now, what I have found in my experience is that lo-fi prototypes are really great for validating or invalidating ideas within internally. So it's more for internal use. It's not something that you necessarily will get into the hands of users, but it's something that your stakeholder, maybe a high power, high interest stakeholder, has a suggestion that the team doesn't think will fly. The designer can put together a lo-fi prototype just to validate or invalidate that idea, right? And the team can now go back to the drawing board and think of a better way to conceptualize the design or the user journey for that particular feature or product. Now, low fidelity prototype has two types: quick and rough paper sketches. So this is why I said it's more for internal use, more for within the company or within between the product team. Maybe the product designer is trying to show the PM, which is you, that this is what I'm coming up with. What do you think? Before they even get down to wireframing screens, they just put a quick sketch together. I know I have done it a couple of times with my product designer during the brainstorming process. You can get on a call with the product designer and you start to do lo-fi prototype, which are just quick rough paper sketches of how you envisage the design process will be translated from the PRD, because remember, you wrote the PRD. And so they're not getting this out of thin air, they're getting it from the PRD. So there's also digital wireframes where it's also a lo-fi prototype, because you also use it within internally, just within product teams or within the company, but it requires a bit more effort than quick and rough paper sketches, obviously. So digital wireframes are when you will not use tools like Figma or any other design tools like Sketch to just wireframe ideas better. Then there's also high fidelity prototypes, or hi-fi. Now, hi-fi are closer to the finished version of the product, and hi-fis are something that you can actually get into the hands of users to gather external feedback. When building a hi-fi prototype, the major or core feature of the product is usually prioritized. Just as I said earlier, you might have 5 ideas that will effectively solve your users' pain points, but you focus on a central idea, you build it out, you get it out, and then you start to optimize the product and iterate and just start to build out the other features that are also solutions to your users' pain points. You start to build it on the product, but the central or the core of your product is what you have pushed out already, because you want to validate for the hypothesis that your product is answering for, right? Now, hi-fi prototypes have 2 types. Mock-ups, actually, they have more than 2 types, but we're going to just address 2 types. So hi-fi prototypes have mock-ups and coded prototypes. Some of you might know what mock-ups are. If you don't know what a mock-up is, you can actually quickly Google and you see what a mock-up is. And then there's also the coded prototype, which is like it's an app, but it's not as refined as it's still a functioning version of your um product. It's still functioning, right? But it's more okay. Let's just get it out. Let's gather feedback and let's see what we get. So it's an MVP can be a coded prototype. When we speak of prototype, like I said, it can sound like this is not my job, because in this entire process you are doing more of reviewing and brainstorming with the product designer. They're the primary responsibility owner here. However, it's just important for you to know, have some knowledge of design processes and terminology, so you are able to effectively communicate your concept or your idea to your designer. What's the difference between low fidelity and high fidelity prototype? Now, think of low fidelity prototype as the blueprint before the. Think of a house, right? Let's use this analogy. You are building a house, and you have a blueprint. Your architect has drafted out a blueprint for your house. That is what a low fidelity prototype in software or in product design or in UI design is. They are just essentially sketches, or sometimes in case of wireframe, digital sketches or digital wireframes of the idea of what your product will look like, right? And it's like I said, it is essentially for internal stakeholders or within the stakeholders that are within the company. It's not something that it doesn't get out into the hands of users. Now, high fidelity or hi-fi wireframes are a much clearer version of the final product, right? So they incorporate actual contents like what is the icon, that what's your business icon. They will include UX copy. The buttons will be functional. Nothing is not functioning on a hi-fi wireframe. I'm sorry, hi-fi prototype. It's a prototype, not wireframe. Pardon us. Nothing is not functioning on a high fidelity prototype, because this is this version that now goes into the hands of users, and then you gather feedback and you iterate based on that. Now, what are the differences? As I said, low fidelity is more for early design stages because you use it for just mostly internally, and the advantages of it is that it's quick and easy to create, and you can explore many ideas with lo-fi prototype. Think of sketching is free, just your biro and your paper, and you sketch, and so you can explore many different ideas of delivering a particular future or delivering a particular idea. And you can gather not necessarily early user feedback, but within the team you can gather feedback from within the team. Advantages of hi-fi is that it's more realistic representation, and it's more visual and interactive. It has more visual and interactive elements. Now, let's get to user flow, because this is the part that will concern you as a product manager. Not that the prototyping and wireframing and all of that doesn't concern you, but the chances that you are doing, like I said yesterday, the chances that you are drafting a flowchart or you are developing a flowchart is very, very high. Especially if you don't have a user researcher, and I explained why is the possibility that you will not have a user researcher. Very, very high possibility. Now, drafting a flowchart is not, or mapping a flowchart, it's not necessarily it's not priority. And I'm hesitant to use the word it's not priority, but you don't have to. That's what I'm trying to say. You don't have to always map a flowchart for every user journey for a future, but I recommend it if you can, because first of all, okay, we'll get into why, because there are importance of user flow in UX design. Now, user flow or UX flow or flowcharts are diagrams which display the complete paths that a user will take when interacting with a product or feature. Now, those of you that wrote your PRD correctly, I included a use case scenario before your functional requirements. There's a use case scenario, right? Now, if you wrote your use case scenario, those are essentially like user flow that your users will take when interacting with each of your features. So if you're for in your homepage, for example, you've already drafted you've written down the user flow that your users will take when they want to encounter your homepage from the start, how they'll get onto the product to how they will arrive at the homepage. The same thing for onboarding. We've written the user flow for how they will get to the product. We've written the user flow for how they will get, how they discover the product, how they'll get on the product, and when the action ends, right? Now, flowcharts is just taking it a step further and translating those articulated requirements into visual representation. So flowcharts are just essentially visual representations of the user flow. Now, it displays the complete path that a user will take when interacting with a product or a feature. The flowchart maps out a user's movement from one touch point. I explain what touch point is yesterday. From one touch point to another throughout the user's interaction with the product. Now, therefore, a user flow is a visual representation. You can either write it in PRD, as I've said, or you can map it digitally. You can map a flowchart digitally with digital design tools. And the reason why I said you can either write it or you can use a digital tool to map it visually is because, like I said, it's not necessary for you to always map a flowchart, but it's good that you understand or you learn how to use it. Now, each touch point that a user would ideally interact with on the product is depicted by a node in the flowchart. Don't worry if you're confused, you understand the further we go. Is depicted by a node in the flowchart, which are characterized by specific shapes, and each shape represents a particular process. So what essentially I'm trying to say is the flowchart, right, comprises of different shapes of nodes, and the shapes are representative of an action that a user will take. Before we get there, let's talk about the importance of user flow in UX design. Why is user flow important? Why is it important to map a flowchart in UX design? It helps you identify edge cases and feature dependencies easily. Now, when you are building features for an existing product, especially when you are building a feature on top of another feature, obviously, like you've sent out your MVP and now you're iterating your MVP and you're building more features into the product, the chances that you will have future dependencies essentially are when one feature interacts directly with another feature. Like maybe you need your users to pass through one feature, or through them interacting with one particular feature, they can interact with another feature. That's a feature dependence, right? Now, if you're writing a PRD, you have to cater for a feature dependence. Then an edge case is when an unexpected action occurs on the products that you, let's say a user takes a path that they're not supposed to take. So it's an unexpected scenario that happens on the product. Now, edge cases come up. It means an edge, if a user, please fill your attendance. So if you've not filled it, Joshua is sending it and I can see it. So any complaints after this class, we're not going to take it seriously. Please fill your attendance. So as I was saying, an edge case is essentially when an unexpected scenario comes up during the user journey. Now, feature dependencies and edge cases can come up, and it is perfectly normal. But there are times when you can miss it if you are not mapping your flowcharts. If you are just focusing on just writing your if your focus is just on documenting or just articulating your requirements for your use flows or your user flows on the PRD, you will miss edge cases or you will miss feature dependencies, and it will not come up when your developers have started to code. Then you now start going to the drawing board and say, okay, how do we cater for this? How do we do this? You waste time, it's inefficient when you could just map out a flowchart that would have easily just spotlighted or would have made you look at your products in a more holistic manner that would help you easily pinpoint your things like edge case and feature dependencies. Now, note that I'm not saying that feature dependencies or edge cases are bad. They are not bad. What I am saying is that you should cater for them when you're documenting your PRD, right? And if you don't cater to them, it means that if your developer in the course of coding figure out that this kind of scenarios exist, you will not have to now go back to PRD and start fixing PRD and start trying to collaborate with your manager or whichever stakeholder is involved. You start trying to gather stakeholders. Oh yeah, please, oh, there's this thing we didn't think about. Please, let's get on a call and figure out how we can think about this. When if you had mapped a flow chart, you'd have easily been able to flag that down. Mapping user flows or mapping flowcharts also helps to present design requirements in visual terms. I remember that I said that you will define the requirements for product on PRD, and the product designer will translate these defined requirements into screens for the product. Now, while the user flow can be articulated on PRD, it makes it easier when the designer just opens the PRD and they see a flowchart. Because their work is very visual, they might struggle. You'll find times when the designer is calling you and they're asking you, what did you say you want this button to do? How do you say you want this flow to happen? You find that they're calling you, right? I mean, they might not call you all the time because there are some features that are very straightforward. Your user flow is not too serious. But when you're building a complex product, like let's say you're building a savings product or a product that has to do with more complexity, it's so much easier when there's a flow chart you put on parody and your designer picks up your parody. They easily see the flowchart and just are able to, because their job is more visual, are able to just translate that visual representation of the user journey into Figma screens for you. Another importance is that it simplifies the design process. As I've said, it helps the designer easily plan. So now what happens during product development is your every stakeholder will give you we'll do effort estimation. Essentially, they're just telling you how long the work will take so that you are able to plan and manage your stakeholders, because you'll find that your stakeholders are asking you, when are you launching this product, right? And you can't know when you're launching if you don't know how long everybody's task will take. So you're going to reach out to your designer. They'll tell you how long it will take them to design the screens. Your developers will tell you how long it will take them to code. Your QA engineer, or if you are the one doing QA, you're going to figure out how long it will take so that when you are giving a timeline for launch, you are able to effectively factor in everybody's task and you give an accurate timeline. And so just even mapping a flowchart simplifies this process for the designer, where just they're able to give you a timeline very quickly because you've done a little bit of the work for them. So they're able to visualize it and just off the top of their head, they're able to say, okay, it might take this long. Or maybe they might just need a little bit more time to deliberate, as opposed to how much longer it would have taken if it was just them reading lines of text on the PRD. But it's important to note that if a design or user flow is revised, right, then the flowcharts will have to be revised. Obviously, your PRD will also have to be revised, which means your flowcharts will be revised. So remember that since the PRD is fluid, your flowchart is also going to be fluid because it's inclusive. It's included in your PRD. Now, what are the common flowcharts symbols? Remember, I said, let's go back. Remember, I said here that every touch point that the user will interact with on the product is depicted by a node in the flowchart, which are characterized by specific shapes, and each shape represents a particular
Sorry, guys. It seems our network is down. Okay, he's back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
Okay,
now.
okay. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen as well? Yes, you should be able to see my screen. Okay. Sorry for that break in transmission. So
We can.
let me backtrack. All right, let me backtrack. I was saying that, remember I said that the flowcharts, every touch point of a user journey would every touch point that a user would interact with on a product is depicted by a node. A node is just those shape, right, on the flowchart, and the nodes are specific shape, and each shape represents a particular process. So it's not just drawing a shape. Now let's get into what are the shapes. This oval symbol is called a terminator symbol, and it marks the start and end of a user's interactions with a feature. So if you are trying to start at the beginning of the flowchart, you'll see this oval symbol. At the end, you see an oval symbol. Maybe I might do a screen recording for us and send to the group tomorrow on flowcharting as well. Maybe it will ease our apprehension with the assignment. Then this rectangular symbol is called an action symbol, and it's just used to depict the steps or actions that users will take in the course of their interaction with a feature or with a product. And actions such as scrolling, let's say you need your user to scroll to the next screen, or you need them to click something on a page, it is depicted with the action symbol. The decision symbol is this diamond shaped symbol, and it's used to depict points on the user journey where you need your users to make a decision, such as they either need to make a yes no decision, or they either need to make a yes no decision or make a true false decision. There's the input and output symbol. It's this rhombus shaped symbol, and it's used when you need the user to input data or the system needs to output data. What do I mean by input and output data? At any point in the user flow where you need your user to enter maybe their card details or their email address, or they need to place an order, you use a rhombus shaped symbol. Or you need the system to send an email verification to the user, or you need the system to send the user a receipt. You're going to use a rhombus shaped symbol. And then the arrow is just essentially used to outline. So the arrow is how you connect all the shapes together on the flowchart. Iterating on designs based on feedback. Remember I said that you constantly iterate a product, right? Now, remember in week one, we talked about the life cycle of a product. And as the product is, as you are optimizing your product, you are consistently iterating. Now, iterating refers to the process of designing, testing, analyzing, and refining a product. It's a loop. You design, you code, you test it, you put it out on the market, you are observing user behavior, you iterate on the product based on user behavior, you optimize the product rather based on user behavior. You look at how users are interacting with this new version of the product. Are they interacting better? What are they saying? You are getting feedback. You're constantly collecting feedback and constantly iterating the product. So it's a loop, and it's the same for the design process as well, because as you are iterating the product, it means that you're also going to be tweaking some things in terms of design. Maybe the example I like to give is your users are probably not finding a button very easily, or they don't understand how to take an action. So maybe you need to simplify the design process. Maybe they are taking too long to get to your onboarding, so you need to reduce your onboarding flow, which means you need to cut down on um the onboarding process, which means the designer has to design new screens, or they need to remove some screens, fix some things, tweak some things. So it's a constant iteration. It's very interesting because it's just constantly iterating the product based on the data that you have at hand, right? Now, without iteration, your products will churn. Or if your product does not churn, you will find that your product does not have any differentiator on the market. Now, sometimes because when you are pushing out your MVP, you don't necessarily have you can't read people's mind. Yeah, you do your user research, you do market research, and you hope that you are building, even though you have data to give you confidence to continue to build. But ultimately, you are hoping that users will find your product useful and beneficial to their pain points, right? So marketing has done their job and they've given you a set of users. If you do not take feedback from those users, it means that you are not going to optimize your product. Now, it means that the version that your users met your product is the version that they will continue to, is the version that your product will continue to be on, even when they've been using your product for a long time. That's why you find that most apps have regular app updates. Not all, but you see that some apps have regular app updates, like even WhatsApp. They're constantly bringing out new features because you don't want your products to be redundant. You're looking at what is on the market, you're listening to your users, you're optimizing your design, your user experience, and in optimizing your user experience, you're also going to be tweaking some screens. So if you do not optimize or iterate on your product, it means that your products will churn. Either your product churns, you'll lose users, or your products will become identical to the sea of multiple products on the market. Because again, it is good and fine you conducted competitive analysis when you're trying to launch a new feature, and so maybe there's a likelihood that your future, even though you changed your icon, you changed your color, and you tweaked a couple of things, but the tendency is that your user journey is similar to the user journey for a similar feature on another product. It's very high. That's okay. But what is not okay is that you've launched that product and you are not looking for how to differentiate your feature or your product from what is on the market. How do you look for ways to differentiate your product? By asking your users, right? By looking at how they are interacting with it, by conducting experiments and trying to see what will work for them and what will not work. So as a product manager, you're constantly looking for how to make your product stand out. And if you don't do that, then your product will die or your product will fail. So that is what iterating based on feedback is essentially. The iteration cycle is all about continuous refining. It's a rotation between creation, testing, and learning. You build something, you put it to test, you see what works and what doesn't, and then you use that knowledge to make it even better. And so this iterative process continues until you have a product that truly shines. And even when your product is shining, like the WhatsApp example, you continue to still iterate. You see that WhatsApp now has an AI search bot on the app. You might think we don't need an AI search bot, but WhatsApp is trying to be, or Meta is trying to retain competitive advantage on the market. Because why? AI is what's hot right now. And so they don't even need to think that there's always a use case for AI. Even in a social messaging platform, there's always a use case. I know Instagram also has an AI bot as well. And so that is just products constantly iterating, constantly looking at what's the market. They're paying attention to trends on the market and even iterating their screen, their user experiences. Instagram, for example, TikTok, when TikTok came into the market, and TikTok was a very big competitor and it's still a big competitor with Instagram. I know Instagram tweaked a couple of their features, tweaks the user experience just so that they are retaining that competitive advantage in the market. If you don't do this, your product will become obsolete. Now, the iteration cycle is a continuous feedback loop. Is a continuous feedback loop, and it can vary depending on your product or depending on your team's preference. But to give you a common structure, it will include launch and reward testing. Now, you get your product out there, right? You get your MVP out there, and you look at the analytics. Like I talked yesterday, you look at the analytics and you see what are users. It's not enough to also just listen to what users are saying, which is the feedback you find on social media, through customer success, or even through in-app. There's that feedback, but there's also you tracking the behavior of the users with your product. How are they using it? Which features are they using? Are they using my key features? Are they not using my key features? And then how can we nudge users to use our key features more often, right? Then there's also continuous feedback. Testing doesn't stop after launch, right? When you're able to launch your MVP, and even not just MVP, I've had instances where you want to launch a feature, and because it's such a critical feature that has, so it's a complex feature. So when you want to launch a complex feature, sometimes you want to do a beta test first, launch it to just your first set or your most active set of users, and see what their feedback is. They will definitely have feedback for your product, and iterate it before you now launch a complete version. And product managers or product team, but it's mostly product managers who will make this call. Product managers do this because they don't want a situation where they put out a product or a feature, they do a product launch that is a fail, that is unsuccessful, right? You spend all of this marketing budget. Next week we're going to learn about go-to-market strategy and how to develop a launch plan. But you've done all this hard work, you've worked with marketing team, you've developed a go-to-market strategy, marketing has been running ads, you've done this launch plan. If it is a big feature, you've probably even collaborated with influencers just for them to for the tech influencers just to make noise about your product, only to find that the product is breaking in the hands of users. Maybe you found out that there's a certain number of users that the platform that hosts your product can only accommodate, and you could have found this out if you had done a beta test. Or it just happens that something just happens, because product features break all the time on production, but you might just find that something just happened that if you had done a beta test, you'd have flagged it and it would not have happened. And so you through beta testing, you're able to gather feedback, or even through A/B testing, you're able to gather feedback, observe user behavior, and iterate or optimize your product to its most optimal version. It's also the analyze and learn. User testing, once user testing has happened, you're evaluating the product's performance, right? Now, are users happy? Did anything unexpected come up? You are also trying to use your product, if it is a product that you can use, because not all products will have an individual use case. Some products might be B2B, meaning business to business. So you might not, as an individual, you might not be able to get on your product and interact with it the way normal users would, right? But you are just talking to your users, and just learning about how they are interacting with products, and then you plan for your next iteration. Now, you cannot, yes, I know I've been saying that you're collecting data, you're analyzing your users' behavior with your products and all of that, but there's a method to the madness, so to speak. There's a method to how the process of optimizing a product happens, right? You remember you have a roadmap. So even though you have launched a product or a feature and you are learning about that feature, you're looking at the analytics, you're gathering feedback from users, you're hearing what users are saying, you're doing social media listening, you're doing all of that. While you're doing that, remember that you're also probably in the product development phase of another feature. So it's a loop where you might be at the product development phase of one feature, while simultaneously being at the start of another feature. So it's such a loop where you are probably juggling multiple priorities, right? And so when you find that you now have gathered data from that a feature that is already live and in the hands of users, or a product that is already live and in the hands of users, you have to find a way to make a plan, add it to your backlog. That's why the backlog is important. Add it to your backlog. Try to sync with your team. I know we're working on this feature, but how do we implement this small product iteration that we want to do so that we can make the first feature better? So there's also a bit of time management and planning that is involved, where you are planning your team efforts around iterating the feature. You cannot just focus on launching new features. You also have to focus on optimizing the feature, and there's a planning process that is involved in that. Now, to conclude, prototypes are like blueprints and mock-ups for your products. And they are prototypes, hi-fi prototypes, like I said, are more polished. They are clickable models that bring the design to life with visuals and interactivity. while flowcharts are diagrams that are used to represent the expected user interaction from their first discovery of the product to the final interaction of the feature. Now, when you are depicting user journey, it's important to cater to all the existing use case scenarios for the feature, such as the journey a user would take versus the path. So this is just when you are this is just a note when you are mapping your flowchart. Don't just think of new users, think of existing users, right? Let's say you are trying to launch a card feature, right? There's the new users. How will new users find the card? They probably find it, I don't know, they might find it in a different way than an existing users will find it. So you want to think of all of those things when you are mapping your flowchart. Now, as you've observed, the way to make your product better is sort of built into the process of product development itself. Now you need to take advantage of this. We need to take advantage of this and leverage this constant feedback loop to ensure that your product keeps getting stronger with each iteration. So that's it for this class. I want to show us so this is what a flowchart looks like, right? This is a template. This link is included in the assignment resource. Let me use something that has a website or an app. Okay. So remember that I said a flowchart has different shape and each shape represents an action. So here, the oval shape represents the start and end of an action, but sometimes circle can be used in place of an oval shape. So this is a circle. These are actions that the user will take along once they enter the website. So this is a flowchart for an e-commerce website. And these are the steps that a user will take on the website. They enter the website. The rectangle box is to go to the rectangle box just depicts the actions that the users are taking. Maybe they're clicking on a button, they are moving. So remember that the diamond shape is for decision. Do users want to select more items? If they do, if the answer is yes, they'll come back to go to product list, right? If they don't, it means they'll continue to check out. They'll continue to log in. They continue to review other information and they exit website. Now, at this point, a rhombus-shaped symbol should have been used as well somewhere here, where remember that the rhombus is for input output data. Now, if they are reviewing other information, it means we're sending them the website or the system will send the user an email. And so there should be a rhombus-shaped box here to show that users are going to receive an email for their order confirmation and then they exit the website. So this is a key, just explaining what the items or what the actions are for. It's very easy. If we're still confused, I can do an example for us and send to the group tomorrow, but I want to take questions. Like I said, the assignment is pretty easy. Livingstone, regarding this, before Livingstone speaks, regarding this assignment, this attendance issue, you guys are going to make us stop using this Google form, because why are we having more students in class than we are having on the attendance, or why are we having more responses on the sheets than we are having in class? It's not good. But Livingstone, go ahead.
Good evening, ma. Thank you for the class. Though I came very late, I'm sorry. I had an interview, so okay, for the flow chart now, I have two questions. And the question is, for the actions to be taken, let's assume that the actions I want to take is quite much. How are we going to go about it? Because there was a kind of a flow chart I learned out that there will be a terminator sign, and according to what I've seen, I think it's just like 4 or 5 symbols that you just taught, which I didn't see.
No, hold on. There should be a terminator
sign. Let's say in a case I have many actions to take.
There's a terminator
Can you hear me?
symbol. There's a terminator symbol. Can you hear me?
Like, is it included? Is it included in
It is. Let me see my
the?
screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, like.
Look at it. So this is a terminator symbol. But it marks.
No. I mean, wait. I'm not talking about that. You know, we have a start, and the start symbol will also represent the end.
The end,
Let's say in a case we have many actions, and it can contain a particular sheet, and I want to move into another page like that. So I feel there should be a terminator sign that will, show that this is the continuation of the previous.
What tool did you use to learn the one you learned? Because what I'm asking is because with Figma you have, it's like an endless white space that you just keep creating. So there's you can't move to another page of Figma. You just keep creating your flowcharts. Do you understand? It's endless.
Oh, okay.
Think of it like a rolling page that doesn't end. So you just keep going.
Okay, another question is, apart from flowcharts, does Figma has algorithm? Maybe I might decide, okay, I don't want to use a flowchart for it. I can just state it in a kind of algorithm way like that. Does that one, is it accepted in Figma?
AI. What is algorithm? Do you mean AI?
Ma?
When you say algorithm, do you mean AI?
No. Algorithm is just like stating what is to be done without representing with those signs. You know, if algorithm has signs, it's just a flowchart. So is it accepted? I can decide not to use a flowchart, but I will just do whatever I need to do with algorithm.
No, use a flowchart for the course of scope. Yeah, use a flowchart.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Chinasa Chukwuemeka.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
In this flow chart, the shapes, is it static? Like, it's not, you must use a particular shape represent the action you talked about. That one cannot use another.
If you are using another shape, that means you are talking about another action. Do you understand? So if when you are supposed to use a diamond shape, you are now using a rectangle, that means you are explaining. It's just like you are using, think of it like sign language, right? You are using the shape to explain a word. That's what you are doing. So if you use the wrong shape to explain a scenario, then I'm going to assume that what you are saying is different from what you think you are saying. Do you get? If you use a diamond shape when you're supposed to use a rectangle, it means you are telling me that the user is going to make a decision, as opposed to a rectangle that means the user is just scrolling or clicking. Do you get it?
Okay, because you taught us, you didn't specify circle, but in the example
I did. Again, I said the circle can also be used in place of the terminator symbol, which is the oval shape. Yes. So there they use the circle symbol, but it also represents the terminator symbol, which is that oval shape.
Okay, ma. Okay. Thank you.
Achigo Prince. Unmute your mic, please. Achigo Prince. Yes, I can.
Good evening, ma.
Good evening.
Please, my question is, when you are releasing a prototype, and maybe you are designing an application, do you send it to the Play Store or to the Google Store?
Which of the prototype?
Maybe you are the hi-fi prototype.
All right.
Yeah, the hi-fi prototype. When you are sending, do you send it to the Google Store? And when you're sending it there, do you indicate that this is a prototype or the original version?
There's no fake version. The prototype is not a fake version. It's just the first version of your product. right? So if it's a hi-fi prototype, it's most likely your MVP. And like I said, even though your MVP is the most simplistic version, it's functional. It's not shabby. It's functional. It might not be as aesthetic as you want, but it's a functional version of your product. So you don't need to let users know that this is the prototype. And you know why? Because when you are launching, you are new to the market. So users who are even interacting with it will understand that this is your first version because they know that you are new to the market.
Okay. I have another question.
Okay.
Okay. I was going through a material you sent to the
Mm,
group, and in FDD, that is feature driven development,
mm,
and the actual user is in the FDD. The actual user is often involved in the development of the product. Whatever the team develops, I'm quoting from the article.
mm,
Whatever the team develops is designed with them in mind. In
mm,
Scrum, it is the product owner that serves as the voice of the customers.
mm,
Now they represent them, but there is no direct involvement of the user. As a result, the feature-driven development is a more customer-centered framework. But I
mm-hmm.
don't understand that statement. Does it mean
Okay,
that
so
the Scrum is not okay?
it's okay. It's not that it's not okay, but remember that FDD is a framework, right? So if you are using an FDD framework, you are going to you probably have a group of beta testers, and that's the only way that your users will be involved in the development of the product. So you have a beta tester group that are constantly testing your product for you because they are a subset of your target users, right?
Okay.
Or if you don't have a beta tester, maybe you're probably running usability experiments such as A/B test experiments to get real time feedback from your users. So that's essentially how FDD is different from Scrum.
All right. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Augusta Malizu. Augusta Malizu, please unmute your mic. Augusta. Okay. Taiwo. Taiwo Joshua.
Yeah, good
Taiwo.
evening. Thank you for the class. I've actually enjoyed the class so far. Please, I want to ask a question. Can we use Notion for... Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you for the class.
Okay.
Yeah, my question is, are we going to use... can we use Notion for this assignment? For the flow chart, can we use Notion?
No,
That's
you
my
can't use
question.
Notion. Notion doesn't have the design tools that you need for flow chatting.
So, something like
Figma.
Google
Figma.
Word or Microsoft Word can do better, right?
Figma. No,
Okay,
Figma.
Figma. Okay.
Yes. You can create a flow chart on Figma. I shared check the classwork resource, the links. If you click on the links, I also shared the prompts. Anyway, we'll go over the
On the Google
classwork. Don't
Classroom,
worry.
right?
Don't worry, I'll go over it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Um Tolu Alope John. Tolu Alope John. Unmute your mic, John. We still have a bit that I want to cover. So if you've indicated to speak and you've been unmuted, please kindly just unmute your mic and speak. Tolu Alope doesn't want to speak. Umar Ibrahim. Umar Ibrahim.
Good evening, ma'am. Yes,
Good evening.
I had someone asking a question about the symbols. So does that mean that there's each symbol represent a specific information or?
Yes, every symbol. I went over that in the class just now. Each symbol represents a specific user action.
So there's a material for us to learn about.
Go on Google Classroom and download the slide. This slide I just went over is on Google Classroom. You can download it. There's also one of the links, one of the extra links that I added also talk about the basic symbols and the advanced. Don't focus on the advanced, just focus on the 5 basic ones, which are what I addressed here as well. Toyin Precious Omotosho.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you.
Good evening, class.
Good evening.
Thank you for the lecture. I want to ask a question regarding the assignment.
Okay.
The new assignment for week 6, it involves us using the PRD for week 2 assignment. If your week 2 PRD is wrongly done, maybe then because one did not really understand the topic and it was wrongly done and it has been graded. Now that you have a better understanding, can we redevelop our PRD to use it for this particular assignment?
Yes, absolutely. I will not regrade you, but you should improve your PRD for the purpose of this assignment.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Paul Ibewachi. Paul, you can speak.
All right. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I've actually come across some very complex flowcharts that can make your head spin. I'm looking at a case where there's an app with so many features and so many things that you can do at the same time. And the entire user journey is complex. So how do you map everything on one page? Just like Livingstone was asking, can you create a continuation?
Ask your question again. Please start again.
Okay, let's say there's an app that can do so many things at the same time. And you're trying to map the entire user journey from start to finish with all the features, possibly on one page. So how do you represent it in a way that is easy for someone to understand? Can you create a continuation symbol and split them into separate pages?
First of all, I will tell you, I will say the same thing I told Livingstone. Figma doesn't have an end. Like the page does not finish. Do you get? You keep, maybe it's because you've not interacted with Figma, but if you get on Figma, you find that you can keep scrolling. Like you can create as much complex flowchart as you want to. Now, I would agree with you that they are advanced symbol, but because this is an introductory class, I am not talking about the advanced symbol. Like you said, I know that there are flowcharts that will make your head spin, but we're trying to learn the granular level, like the basic ones, right? And so these 5 symbols we talked about are the basic ones you need to make an okay flowchart that a product team or a product designer can work with. Now, Figma, like I said, is rolling. It doesn't end. It's not like it doesn't have an end essentially. So you don't need a continuity symbol in that sense. Now, if you realize that you're designing a user flow that needs a continuity symbol, it's very complex. It means that you are advanced. You're not a beginner. So you can go and learn about the advanced symbols. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, okay. Yeah. And then I also want to see something.
Class. Okay.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so there's this app I discovered for creating flowcharts. It's called Whimsical. It has templates. So I don't know whether it is part of the resources available, but I want to suggest it. You just click and fit everything together.
Okay, that's fine. Figma also has templates anyway, but yes, please drop your suggestion in the learning resource so that other people can check it out if they don't like Figma.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Israel.
Okay, thank you for giving me audience. And I have a little challenge in respect of the assignment questions. I don't know. I'm asking if you can just do a favor by throwing little light on it, like
I
elaborating
already
a little
said
bit.
that I will explain the assignments. I said that.
Okay, that's actually what I'm waiting for because I'm not really getting the assignment straight, and I just want a little light on them.
Just be patient.
Okay, and then outside that, I want to know how can we get the Figma link so that we can create a Figma and then go over
You
it.
can go on Google and type Figma, but if you go on the resources, I included a link for you. But it's easy. Go on Figma and maybe I'll share a link for you. But let me take questions, Israel. I will get to the assignment soon. Augusta, I called you earlier. Are you ready to speak now? Augusta Malizu.
Yes, I can speak. I had network issues earlier.
Okay. Go on.
Good evening, ma.
Good evening.
My question is on product iteration. Okay. So, in the process of trying to create or maybe add a new feature to the product, to the existing product, are we writing a new PRD for this new feature that we want to iterate? Or we just go back and edit the PRD we've written before?
Okay,
That's
no,
my
you
question.
write a new PRD for new features, and I'll tell you why. So when you are writing the PRD for MVP, it's different from when you're writing PRD. Apuka, please mute yourself. I can hear myself back. Okay. When you're writing the PRD for an MVP, it's slightly different from when you're writing the PRD for a feature, and I'll tell you why. This is because you're writing the PRD for an MVP, being you are seeing the MVP as a single product that you're putting out, right? That is your first iteration of your product. So you write an API for the MVP. Now, when you start to build other features, they are going to have, remember, your MVP is conveying your central or your core idea that your product will deliver. Now, when you are now building out other features, they also have their own purpose. Think of a fintech that launched the primary focus of a fintech might be just let users, it's a digital bank, so we want users to be able to transfer money. Maybe your USP can be like Kuda, where you are not charging users for transaction fee. You launch that out. Now you want to now launch card. You have to write the PRD for cards. Why? Because the requirement for cards is different from your MVP. Now, when you've iterated, while you are working on developing the card feature, you have probably optimized, you have probably gathered feedback from the first MVP launch. And so you are going to notice some things that you need to tweak on the current product while your team is working on the cards PRD. So now you see that you cannot have one PRD. You have to have several different PRD because while you're optimizing, you're going to edit that first PRD while the team is using the cards PRD to work. So just in summary, you do write different PRDs for different features as you are releasing. Does that answer your question, Augusta?
Yes, ma.
Alright.
Thank you, ma.
You are welcome. Tolu Alope, you were called earlier. Are you ready to speak? Tolu Alope John. Tolu Alope John. Okay, it's not ready. Israel, do you have another question or is your hand just coincidentally still up? Livingstone, ask your question.
Mama, the question is according to the last explanation that Augusta asked, I think I'm very confused. You made mention of writing a new PRD for a new feature, but the understanding I've been having is that we just continue with the initial PRD that we've written, then we use it even after we've launched our MVP and like that. So I'm not really clear. At the PRD now,
go on.
the initial PRD, we have to carry out a research for it. Then before we can make that PRD, okay, for a new feature, like how can you please just explain how we can go about it?
Okay,
Carrying
for a
out
new
another
feature,
PRD.
for a new feature, you don't now necessarily have to. So the research was for your products. Do you see? Your research was okay. Let's use grocery pay now. Your research was, is grocery pay solving? Remember that your MVP is conveying your central solution, or the central solution that your product has. Now, grocery pay, for example, you've validated the question, which is the problem that your product is trying to answer for, your product is trying to solve. You've now validated for this, right? Which is what you've conducted during your research. Now, you don't necessarily have to now conduct the same or exact the same level of research efforts that you did the first time. The first time was very important. Now, you do conduct research when you're launching feature. I will tell you that you conduct research every time you want to launch a feature, but it's easier the second time because you now have existing users. So it might not even be as difficult when you're sending out Google Forms to people. It could be that you will now leverage your marketing channels, right, to get feedback from your users regarding the new feature. It could be that it's even your users are even telling you that please people should launch this feature. So you already know that there's a need for the feature. So you might not even need to conduct a research in that regard. Does that answer your question, Livingstone?
Yes. Okay. More like a user experience research. Is it? Why can't we just keep updating our PRD instead of having to create another one?
Because the PRD, so the first PRD is different from if you are trying to launch a new feature, you cannot put it on that PRD. It's confusing because again, you're not the only one using the PRD. Remember, your product team is also using it. Nobody wants to be scrolling and be looking for the information that they need when they can just click on another PRD. Now, if you use Notion as a documentation tool, you'll see that you can create multiple documents. So what product teams just do is the Notion is their document store, so to speak, or Notion houses all their documentation and they're just PRD. So you just labeled PRD for MVP, cards PRD, bills PRD, just like that. But it's just good practice to draft a new PRD because your developers will stress you. They'll tell you that they don't know what you want them to do if you don't have a PRD for the future.
Okay, I think I'm clear now. So we can have as many as PRD for new features coming up. Okay, last
Yes.
question. So that does not
Anyway.
mean that we can have many backlog. I mean, yes, backlog. Since it's more like a to do, so I can just be adding each features coming features that are new that are coming up to my to do backlog, right? It doesn't
Please say that.
necessarily mean that I'm saying that for a backlog now, it doesn't mean I will just have to create another one. I can just be adding it to the existing ones that
Oh
are there
no,
already.
so backlog is one. Backlog is one. That's why you're using a Kanban board. Do you see now why you use a Kanban board for backlog? So your backlog is that one single backlog and you keep updating it. So that's why you are now able to section things with your Kanban board. Yeah. Okay, Sheol, your last will take then. I will address the assignment. Before Sheol speaks, Adiolu, you're asking whether is your question that can the product design class be a prerequisite, or are you asking if it should be a prerequisite? You can raise your hand and ask your question because the class is still live. But if your question is whether it should be a prerequisite, Joshua already answered you. It shouldn't be. You just need to have basic knowledge of design. And I explained why during the class. You need to understand you are working with stakeholders, you're working with a designer. Think of you're working with a carpenter. Let's assume you're working with a carpenter. You want to be able to understand the terms that the carpenter is using. You want to be able to understand you're working in a workshop with the carpenter. Even though you're not the one doing the carpentry work, you want to be able to know that this is a hammer and this is what they use a hammer for. So it's just important that you understand the flow that is tied to how the product is developed or the product development process. So if it's confusing for you, you're not the product designer, so you don't have to understand every single thing that I am. You don't have to understand everything that is involved in UI design. You just have to have this foundational understanding. And then when you are in the field, when you are started to work as a product manager, you'll see that you start to see all these things play out. You start to see that, oh, this is what we're talking about. This is wireframe. This is this. This is that. You start to understand some of this terminology. But it's important for you to not go into the workspace and not know this terminology or not have an idea of what the design process is like. Like I gave an example that during brainstorming, for example, you find that your product designer might want to have a clearer understanding of what you want the future to look like. You remember you defined the requirements. They will call you and you will not you people will start sketching, or they might be the one doing the sketching, right? They will be sketching, but they're going to ask you, okay, walk me through your thought process for this future. How do you envision it? How do you want it to be? If you don't know what they're talking about, you're going to be lost and you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing as the product manager. So guys, can we limit the chats on the group so that people who are actually, in fact, you're supposed to be focusing. So I don't know what this chat is, but let's not distract the rest of the class, please. Thank you. All right, Shehu, your last will take, and then I'll go over the assignment. Shehu, please quickly ask your question.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, good evening.
I was hoping that you are going to give us a step-by-step approach to draw the flowchart using the Figma. I was hoping that
Yes, I said that I included a lot of resources, a ton of YouTube videos, and I'll share some more on Telegram that you can watch. It's very easy, and I want you to make an attempt. But if the consensus is that it's too hard, I can do a screen recording tomorrow for the rest of the class. But just try. It's not as difficult as
I've been on it. Yeah, I've been on it.
It's very easy, honestly. Once you understand the symbols and the purpose of it.
No problem. Secondly, I want to buttress on the question that Costa and Davidson were asking about PLD. Right? creating a new feature. Creating a new PLD for new feature. Now, this is my question. Now, previously, let us understand that backlog does not. PLD does not inform backlog. It's backlog that always informs PLD. So, meaning that we must have all the features on the backlog before creating the PLD.
Sure, you're not audible. I can't hear you.
So about the PLD and the backlog, that's what I want to ask. So we can always create a new PLD anytime we want to update our features or you want to create another features. Hello? Mm-hmm. Hello?
I can hear you. Go on.
So now I wanted to ask, if with the backlog now, are we going to create another backlog for the new features, or we are going to update the previous backlog?
You have just one backlog. You don't create multiple backlogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have another feature now, you are just going to update the backlog, the new features.
I'm struggling to hear you, Shiu.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. What did you say?
I said the moment we want to create another features, we want to update. We need to update the backlog.
Yes, the backlog is a fluid it's a living document, so you keep updating it. Yes. Once you launch a feature, you go and move it to completed section. So you see that it's fluid, it's living. Yeah, updating it regularly.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, so now let's go over the assignment. I think that number one is very clear. Abby, do we need to go over number one? I'm going to assume that number one is clear, and number two is Can people hear me? Falashade says she can't hear me. Can everybody hear me?
Can hear you.
All right. So now let's do number one is actually okay. Let me go over all. So number one is I showed you a customer persona yesterday. You can refer back to slide 1 to look at what a customer persona looks like. Now, You've gathered data. Remember, I said that the customer persona is information in the customer persona is what you got from your user research. Remember that. Now, you are now using that data to inform. In fact, let me bring up our customer persona so we can do a okay. So we can do a more so this is the customer persona. You can all see it. Now, this information, things like customer statement, demographic, how do I know the age of the user? Because I've interviewed the user, right? Or even if I've not interviewed the user, we have a target. Even if you did not collect age, we already have a target range. So if you don't have a specific age, maybe you did not collect age information, that's okay. As far as the user falls within our target audience range. And now I know for grocery pay, our target audience was 20 people aged within 20 to 40. So here it will be 20 to 40. Now, what I said in the assignment is select just one user. You interviewed, I think the minimum was 13, I'll be 14 users. Now I'm saying just out of that 14, just pick one user from it now, and come and create a customer persona for that user or a user persona for the user. Is it a man or a woman? Write it. What's the user's name? Write it. The only thing I said when I said you remember to use a fictional photo is because the user persona has an image section. Do not use the person's, don't go and look for the person on Facebook or Instagram and start using the person's picture. Just go on there are several stock free. If you go on Google and type stock free images, you find so many. Use a random, or even go on Pinterest, use a random person's photo here. But let's be, if your gender is a man, then you can use a random man's photo. If it's a woman, use a random woman's photo. If it's since your market is Nigeria, use a black person so that it fits in. So you see what a user persona is. We're trying to create a sort of like a repository of a visual, think of it like a visual board of what our target users would look like. Now, I said yesterday that this is primarily, or this is mostly a marketing concept, but in user experience, it is practice. You will not have to do it as a product manager, right? But if you find yourself working as a user researcher, or you find yourself working with a marketing team, you will have to now create a user persona. So it's just a nice to know, and it's good you know how to do it. So you guys should learn. Now, I said occupation. Some of you collected your users' information on what they do. You put it here. Are they married or single? This is not important. Now, the demographic information, everything I put here, you don't have to use every single information here. Whatever relevant information you gathered from your user is what will go here. Demographics is essentially the background of the person. Where did they stay? What do they do? Are they graduates? What's their job? Just think of anything that has to do with that pertains with the background of the person. That's what you put in demographic info. Then pain points. You collected, most of you did your research really well, where you've collected your users' pain points. If you did not, I think most of you collected users' pain points, right? Now you don't have to put just one. I put one because it's an example. You can write about 2 pain points here. And then what's the solution? Now, some of you who did your Please, if your mic is unmuted, please mute your mic. Some of you who did your research properly, collected solutions. And when I say collected, is that your users suggested or your users told you what the solution to their problems are because of the kind of questions you asked. You put it here. This is why I said some of you asked leading questions, because if your question was focused just on what features you want to see, what app do you want to see, you will not be able to have all of this information. So you see why the questions you ask during user research is important. If you are in the WhatsApp group of people who collected leading questions, it's fine. You can go back and try to figure out what, if you collected the pain points properly, you can now try to pose what you think their solution will be in tangent with the product. And that's essentially what building a user persona is all about. I used Canva for this. If you're not familiar with Canva, you can actually just use MS Word. I'm sure MS Word is easy. You can easily do this on MS Word. You don't need all these color things. These are just visual, it's just aesthetics. You don't really need it. What's important are the content of the user persona. I use Canva. If you don't want to use Canva, you can use Microsoft Word or Google Word, whatever tool you want to use is fine. So number one should be clear. Let's go to number two. Now, let me go over the question. Using the data gathered from your user research, I've explained this. Select just one user from the feedback and develop a customer persona. I've gone over this. Now, for number two, from the use case scenarios, let me see if I have my PRD up. All right, so this is my PRD. Where is it? PRD. So this is my PRD, right? And I have use cases. This is UI, under UI design. See why this section is important. Those of you who didn't include it on your PRD, I left comments for you. So you can go back and fix your PRD. Now, under the use case scenarios, I wrote, so these are my highlighted, these are my features for my MVP: sign up, onboarding, login, and homepage. And I wrote use case scenarios or user flow for each of these features, right? Login, homepage. So now what I am asking you to do here is these steps now, like this, that are in bullet points. Go and map a flowchart for it. That's essentially what I'm saying. Map a flowchart for this. So now select just one feature. I think I said two. Let me see. Yes, I said just two features. So if some of you had like 5 features, which is not feasible set for your MVP, because you people will be developing product for 1 year and they'll sack you. But you should have a very, very reasonable number of features. 3 is fine. But for the purpose of this assignment, I'm saying 2 features. Highlight 2 features. Now, from the use case scenario, I've shown you what the use case scenario is. From the use case scenario, go and select 2 features on your PRD, right? Don't flowchart for all. Some of you will start flowcharting for all your 5 features. Please don't do it. I will actually penalize if you do that, because it means that you don't adhere to instructions. That's why I said that stick with the instructions, otherwise be penalized. Just select 2 features. Me, I had 3 features on my, where is it? I had 3 features here. Look at my 3 features. And I wrote a use case for all 3. But if I was going to answer this assignment now, I'll just do for sign up and do for login. Or I can select login and homepage and just do. That's what I'm saying. Select 2 features that is on your PRD. Don't flowchart for all, just 2. Include the link to your PRD, because I want to see that you wrote a use case. And if I cannot check that your flowchart is correct, if I'm not seeing what you articulated as your use case scenario, right? So include the link to your PRD as you are submitting. Now, I said Figma has wireframe templates. Let's go to Figma. This is Figma's website. This link is included here. This is the link. Now, this link is included here. And if you scroll to the bottom, essentially, I was just telling you how to get to the link. If you read this, I said create a Figma account. Click on the second link. So scroll to the bottom. See flowcharts. If you click on flowcharts, because I have a Figma account, I'm signed in. If I click on flowcharts, it takes me to my Figma. This is my Figma account. So this is the templates. So you can see flowchart template copy. You can now use this, any of their templates. All you have to do is just edit the content. Edit the content, but understand what you are flowcharting. Remember, the symbols have meanings. This diamond means yes, no. See what I said? It is when you need your users to, customers need drinks. So when you need your users to make a decision, use a diamond shape. If you need to, this is the beginning. I said that a circle can be used, or the oval shape, but please use oval. If you don't see oval, you can use circle anyway. For terminating, see at the beginning of the flow and at the end, see that is the circle. So that's just what I'm saying. I just said Figma has wireframe template. Create a Figma account. Click on this particular link, which will bring you to this page. Scroll to the bottom, click on flowcharts. When you click on flowcharts, it will open the Figma templates. It will open these templates up for you. You can copy and start to do your flowcharting. Now for submissions, Figma has an option to share. On Figma, this option to share. You can share your link so I can view it. I know there's an option. I can't figure it out right now, but there's an option for you to even download it as a PNG. One of the resources, this resource is included here. This resource now will take you to this page, and you can see that there are 3 ways to share your flowchart. So it tells you how to share your flowchart. You can download it and upload it as a picture, which is PNG or JPEG. That's what they're saying. PNG, PDF. You can download your flowcharts as an image and upload it in your submission. So now, I want 3 things from you for this assignment: your customer persona, the PRD that you worked on in week 2, and your flowcharts that you would have downloaded from Figma. You can include a link because Figma has that option. Yeah, but test your link so that we're not having issues when you submit and I'm now telling you that your link is not working or something. Test your link. If it takes you to the right page, then include your link. And that's essentially what the assignment is saying. Are we clear? Are we clear? Any questions? Please ask questions about this thing.
I have a question. Please.
She'll ask your question. We're running out of time.
Okay, it's not even about this Figma. It's about the comments you made about the.
Abraham, raise your hand if you have a question.
So I was saying that Google Form. The reason why most of us ask the leading question is that people are kind of lazy to fill form or to do anything like questionnaire. So it's easier for us to just suggest for them.
Sheil, I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now? Can you hear me
Yes,
now?
yes.
So I said the reason why most of us ask a leading question on our Google Form question is that
I can't hear you anymore. I don't know what you are. Are you moving away from your phone?
No. I'm using my earpiece. Can you hear me now?
Okay, so maybe connect directly because I can't hear you. You are going in and out.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
No, I can't hear you. It's muffled, very low. Abraham, ask your question. Abraham, oh yeah, I'll meet your mic.
Hello, good evening, ma.
Yeah, good evening.
Hello.
I can hear you. Good evening. Speak, please. Can everybody hear me? Or is it just Abraham's device? All right. So, Abraham, please rejoin. We can't hear you. Drop off and rejoin the call. We can't hear you. Folashade Messi. Folashade, unmute your mic.
Okay, good evening, ma. Thank you very much, ma. It is well explanatory, but if any hold up anywhere, I will message you personally.
You raised your hand. So you don't have a question. All right. Let's take people that have questions. Abraham. Oh yeah, Abraham, you can ask your question. Abraham,
Hello.
unmute your mic. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Good evening.
Yes, thanks for this. Actually, I think I have an idea for the question 1. I think I'm very clear with the question 1. But it's question 2. According to the explanation you gave us, because before I was lost, but I think I'm getting my way back now. You said we include the link for week 2. And that week 2, I think I don't know, I did my own lip from MS code, which I shared. So I don't know how we include the link actually. But to the instruction you gave, said I don't know how I will include the link. That means maybe I will have to upload through to.
Why can't you include the link? What's wrong with the documents? The documents you submitted in week 2. What happened to it?
I can't remember. Maybe I said, oh yeah. I think the assignment for week 2 was
the week you did PRD. Was it week 3?
I did. Ma?
The week you did PRD, that PRD that you submitted, that's the link I'm saying you should include.
Okay,
That
okay. All right.
PRD, I want to see that PRD because I want to see your use case, and check that your flowchart is correct.
But in this case, since you say we are taking just three features, and like you said, I will also go with the sign up button and the sign in, the sign up and the sign in. But how do we incorporate it into the flowchart? Because when I check through your flowchart, I see some other things like customer engagement and some other things that are there. I think these are just full PRD options. And
When you
since
check
people are picking the one you sent, your this thing you did, like the Figma, that's the one you showed us on your slide. I saw different features, like features. I can't actually recover.
You don't have to follow what is on your use case is what you map. You don't have to do what I did. So if your use case is what I want to see is what you said, are you able to translate what you've written as your use case scenarios into the flowchart? That's what I want. That's what I want to see.
Oh, if I'm correct, if I understand you now, that means if I'm picking sign up button.
Please, can I hear? Was it Sheol that was speaking? Sheol? Was it Sheol that was speaking? Or it was Abraham? Okay, it was. No, hold on, Abraham. I can't hear you anymore. Maybe you ask the rest of your question on the Q&A.
I'm muted.
Okay. Go on, I can hear you.
All right, I'm very sorry. So I said, see, if I may understand what you are saying now, that means if I'm picking sign up option, that means everything I wrote under PRD on sign up options are the things I will incorporate into the flowchart.
Yes. So follow the symbol. Use the right symbols. Look at what the symbols mean, and then translate what you've written and use the right symbols.
Just to know maybe what you are saying is correct. That's why you should include the link for the PRD.
Yes, I want to see. Yes, that's why you're including the link. I want to see that you did the right thing.
Oh, that's good. Thank you very much. I think I'm clear now.
All right. So just disclaimer, you're not going to have to write a PRD and then do a flowchart. It's either or. No, you will still write a PRD. You don't have to depict your use case on your PRD and then now do a flowchart. So you can include the link to a flowchart on that use case on your PRD for your product designer. So it's not that you now have to like articulate all the steps for the user flow and then still do a flowchart. It's either you do one or the other, but you must write your PRD. So what you now do is you now include the link for your flowchart on your PRD. We have 15 minutes left. We're not going to exceed time. So if you've spoken before, I probably will not call you. Shehu, you've been trying to speak. Ask your question very quickly.
Yeah, please, ma. I wanted to ask the customer persona. So are we using Figma to draw that?
No, I said the customer persona. You can use Microsoft Word. I used Canva to create that image. You can use Microsoft Word. You can use whatever. You don't need Figma for customer persona now. It's not design.
Okay. The another thing is that I because of time, Shabo, I wanted to make a comment about the Google form that you said you are.
No, there's no space for comments. Put your comments in the Q&A. You can drop your comments in the chat. I can address it. David Abulu. We're just going to take two more. Livingstone, put your comments in the question and answer. You've spoken today.
Yeah, good evening, Judith, and thanks a lot for the class. So this question is regarding the PROD. Oftentimes you have been saying some ask and leading question. Okay, so I really want to understand it because you've been using it quite a lot now.
Okay,
the leading question you are referring to, is it that when we included options? Because in my case, I didn't initially include options, but I was getting feedback from people that they would always prefer options to make it easy for them to fill.
Okay, no, that's not what I mean. You should include options because like the feedback that people have given you, it's easier It's easier to fill, but the options are not going to be restricted. But when I mean leading questions, some people were specifically asking about an app. That's a leading question. So you are conducting research to uncover your users, or you're trying to uncover pain points. You have a problem, right? And now you're trying to uncover, is this problem that we say that people are experiencing, are they really experiencing this problem? Now, some people were, instead of asking about the people's experience with grocery shopping or healthy eating, people were asking about a grocery app as the solution. So some people ask questions like, would you like an app? What features would you like on the app? Just questions like that are leading, because you are now posing your product as the solution. When you did not give, you could have given the users the opportunity to tell you what the solution is. If they told you that this problem now, yes, so we're really experiencing it, and they'll tell you this is the problem we're experiencing, they can now, you can ask the right questions to include would have been, how do you think this problem will be solved for you, or how can this experience, how can your grocery shopping experience be made better? Just general practice is to not include your product as the solution to your user's problem when you're conducting user research.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Victor, you're the last we'll take. Livingstone, drop your question on the Q&A chat. Livingstone, I'm sorry, Victor Amos, you are the last we'll take, and we'll call it a day. Victor Amos, please unmute your mic and ask a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Ma, for the class. Really appreciate for all the knowledge that you've shared. So my question is, number one question is, I want to, if you can expatiate more on what you mean by used cases. That's the first question. Then the second one is, there was a time I sent you a message, I dropped a message when I was about going for my camp, NYSC orientation camp. So I told you then that I didn't have, I tried connecting to the classes, but I couldn't. So because of that, I was not able to do the assignments that fell within that period. But though after the camp, I've gone through the classes already. I've gone through all the classes I've missed. So, but I've not done the assignment because they are all due. And then one of the assignment is this.
Are you a new student? If you're on the new group, you should be able to still submit your assignments.
No, I started the first. I'm not. I don't think I'm new because I started it when the class started.
Okay.
Yeah. So and the PRD we need to do the assignment for today is also part of the ones I missed during that period. So I don't know how to go about it now.
You can write your PRD, and since you've not been graded, so it means you don't even have feedback. You can write your PRD and send it to me, and I will share feedback so you can go ahead and do your assignment.
Okay. Okay. What about the other ones I've missed? Can I also do all and send to you?
No, you can't send to me because I'm not grading. So I'm looking at your PRD just so you can do this assignment properly. Right, it's just for the purpose of this assignment because you need your PRD. So I'm just going to look at it. It's not like I'm grading you. I'm just looking at you and sharing feedback that will help you do this assignment properly.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you,
Okay,
ma'am.
so I guess I've answered all your questions. Everybody else, please drop your question. Okay, we can take one more. Cynthia, Ifoma, quickly ask, just very quickly.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Please, my question is on this PRD. You said we should submit the link, but we that use the MS Word, because my own I submitted before as a PDF. Sure, I can submit as PDF.
You can submit. Okay, so I think people are confused about the link. However, you submitted your PRD, you can submit it here.
Okay.
So you can attach your PRD in whatever form for this assignment. Abraham, I think you have a similar question. However, you submitted your PRD, submit your PRD in that format. It's fine.
Okay, ma. Okay, ma. Thank
All
you.
right. Livingstone, what you are saying, Livingstone, I've answered your questions. I don't know why you're asking this question, but for the flowcharts, you are translating your use case scenarios into flowcharts. So your use case scenario is essentially your user flow or your user journey, right? User journey is from the beginning of your user's interaction with your product or your feature to the end of their interaction. So that's why you wrote use case for every single feature, because that's the user journey for the features. I hope that's clear. All right. If it's not clear, you can drop, all of you that have questions, drop your question in question and answer. We're running out of time and we can't hold everybody here. So I hope that this assignment is clear. It's very interesting, and I promise that this flowchart is the easiest. It's even easier than customer persona. Once you start, you can just practice and you see that you'll be able to get a hang of it. So have a good night. I will see you all on Sunday by 3 p.m. I promised yesterday your grades, you will all receive your grades for last week, latest by Tuesday. So just keep an eye out for that. And yeah, do your assignments, help each other, and have a good night. If you have more questions, drop it in chat and I'll reply.